So after such difficult few weeks, can Boris Johnson reset his premiership? In a moment, I'll be speaking to the Conservative peer Danny Finkelstein and Observer columnist Sonia Sodha. But first, here's a quick reminder of some of the highs and lows of the PM's year.
A very happy Boris Johnson in Hartlepool Marina, a town that not so long ago the Conservatives never dreamt of capturing.
This government that got Brexit done, that's getting the COVID vaccine rollout done.
How does power actually exercised in number 10?
Forgive me.
There's a great misunderstanding people have that because it nearly killed him, therefore he must have taken it seriously.
Hands up anyone who's been to Peppa Pig World.
In no other profession could someone be found guilty by an independent process and just have their mates vote them back into the job.
Do I regret that decision? Yes, I certainly do.
You may be the Prime Minister of this country, but in this house, I'm in charge.
Should we cancel Christmas parties?
All guidance was followed.
We followed the guidance. All the guidelines were observed.
His fictional party was a business meeting. And it was not socially distanced.
I apologise.
The Prime Minister was taking them for fools.
Well, I'm joined by Sonia Sodha, columnist and chief leader writer at The Observer, and Danny Finkelstein, Conservative peer and Times columnist. Good evening to you both. Danny Finkelstein first. When we hear things like, Boris Johnson needs to get a grip, he needs to listen more, he needs to instill discipline, what is all that code for? We'll just get you unmuted. We want to hear every word.
Sorry, I'm completely clear that Boris Johnson isn't going to change, and calling for him to change is just a way of saying you don't think he's governing well. If you sort of think this is all just about his advisors, I think that's wrong. I think this is lots of these issues are about the way that he runs the government. The Conservative Party has gained a lot from some of his charisma, but it's lost a lot from some of the issues that you've just been highlighting. And so just saying that he has to change, people don't change, and he won't be able to change himself.
I was going to say, did you think he ever had the capacity to kind of knuckle down, see things through, concentrate hard, and actually show a great degree of empathy towards the voters?
Well, that's a different thing. I do think he has the capacity to do that. And in lots of ways, he's quite centrist, and I quite like that. But no is the answer to your question. I've always had big questions about whether he had the ability to concentrate on detail and whether or not he would prove, therefore, a good Prime Minister. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't want to be leader of the Conservative Party. It's not that he doesn't have any good qualities. He has lots of good qualities. He obviously has a lot of electoral appeal, and he succeeded in winning several times in elections that were highly contested. But I always had this question, and I'm unsurprised that it's proven a problem for him.
Now, Sonia, so this should be or could be a big moment for Labour. But there has been very little from Keir Starmer. Do you think Labour has done enough to capitalise on this moment?
Well, I think if Labour's going to capitalise on it, which it absolutely should be looking to do, that is a long-term proposition, not a short-term proposition. So I think in the here and now, the Labour lead we're seeing in the polls, what we saw happen in North Shropshire, that is all about the government, how the public is feeling about the government and how voters are feeling about Boris Johnson. And I think there's an extent to which, if Labour try and do too much, actually, they shift some of that focus away from the government. So I thought that Labour played it quite well last week, where they said they were going to support the government over the Plan B measure votes. I think Labour always had to do that because Labour's always been clear that it follows scientific advice. It would have looked very bad if it hadn't. But also by doing that, it emboldened Conservative rebels on the backbenches, junior ministerial aides, to think, well, actually, because we know Labour's going to vote with this government, there's a bit less at stake.
But interestingly, do you think, conversely, that actually Labour thinks its best chance of winning is actually to keep Boris Johnson in Downing Street, to make sure Boris Johnson stays there by hook or by crook?
I think it's a tricky one. I mean, I do think the longer Boris Johnson stays in number 10, the more of a liability that he's going to become to his party. And who thought we'd be saying that 2 years ago? But here we are. But I think there's also another issue that the Conservatives face, which is that if there were a leadership election early next year, who replaces Boris Johnson? I think if you look at some of the successors like Liz Truss or Rishi Sunak, Priti Patel, it's very difficult to see that there's anybody who can sort of pull off the 2019 trick that Boris Johnson did.
Well, let's talk about that 2019 trick let's talk about that with Danny Finkelstein. Whether you're either a newly minted red wall Tory or a veteran Tory from the Shires as a MP, are you both terrified equally at the moment?
Yeah, look, because I think that what happened in this seat was just a big swing against the government. You know, in Chesham and Amersham, you could say there was a demographic element to it. In Hartlepool, there certainly was a demographic element to it. Here, we've just got a sort of disillusion with the government. And we know from elections, when that swing happens, it happens everywhere. You know, you'll get a degree of rotation between seats, but the crucial factor will be the overall swing. So, of course, everybody is concerned. And my view is that from this result, it's wrong to concentrate on, you know, can the Conservative Party hold this coalition together? It's losing votes everywhere for the same sorts of reasons, and it gained votes everywhere for the same sort of reasons, for you know, taking a particular position that was quite popular, and the opposition obviously being unelectable.
Do you agree with Sonia's analysis about what would be the replacement for Boris Johnson, the problem that throws up in itself?
I think they've actually got some very good people, but I do share Sonia's analysis about positioning. So I think that Boris Johnson's great strength is where he's positioned the Conservative Party, both on economic issues where I kind of agree with him, and social issues where I've less agreement. And I think that the problem he's got is a lot of the MPs will move away from it. It was very interesting, this rebellion. The Conservative Party wasn't just rebelling against Boris Johnson in the middle of the week, it was also rebelling against public opinion, because a lot of Conservative MPs stress liberty against a feeling in the public which stresses security, and I think Boris Johnson gets that, which maybe some of the other candidates don't. On the other hand, they would swap some of his less admirable personal characteristics for somebody who might not have those disadvantages.
Thank you both very much indeed. Rita